Welcome to this Q&A session on the Spicule-owned platform Anssr. Before we go into it though, I'm going to introduce you to Tom. Tom Barber is the CEO of Spicule. He is the brains behind the Anssr Platform. I'm Oliver Hill. I've known these guys for quite some time. I run a coaching company called Hill Coaching Company, very originally titled. What I have said to these guys is when I've spoken to them at length, both Tom and Steve Downey, Managing Director, they have some great stuff. They can help a lot of businesses who are using data and don't even realise they could be maximising it, and in certain cases don't even realise they've got data, which seems to me absolutely crazy. But when I speak to Tom, I find it a little bit difficult to get my head around why. So he then explains it to me, and I get it. And I thought, well, why don't we put him in front of a camera? I'll ask him some stupid questions. He will then be able to answer it in a way that we'll all understand. And I relay back, so before we get into the Anssr Platform, we talk quite often about this example of small retailers and how they don't even realise the data they're collecting. And I always find this fascinating. So just go back to when we've spoken a few times about small retailers and your frustrations with their lack of understanding about the data they're collecting. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, you see it all the time, like down the high street. The big businesses, they get their competitive advantage by understanding who their customers are and understanding the data that within their business, how they can leverage it better in terms of stock management, customer analysis, footfall, that type of stuff. And the data that they generate allows them to make better decisions. You find quite often when you're talking to the smaller businesses that they see it as not necessarily a way for them to be able to, further their business and make their, improve their profits, improve their turnover effectively. And so by doing stuff with data more effectively for the small retailers, it will of course allow them to make the same decisions and allow them to, make better decisions when it comes to how to improve the shopping experience for their customers, what stock they have in. You don't want dead stock at the end of the day, and you want to be able to make sure that you're competitive with other people that are in your market. And so, the data that's available, both data that's inside their own shop, stuff that comes in the tills, information about the customers that come in, but also external data sources as well. Weather data is obviously a good one. Currencies and exchange rates for imports. What's going on in the EU with Brexit. There's data points that can be pulled in for that will allow them to make decisions, more informed decisions than they would do otherwise.
Yeah, so what I always then, when I hear Tom talk about that, and Steve has mentioned similar things when we're having conversations, I hear a lot of people in retail complain about Amazon and online shopping and things like that being a threat. And I'm not going to pretend it's hard. My family runs a retail company, so we know that there are some struggles there. But actually, if you're making those points and you're not even exploring this information, so in effect what Tom is saying and what I hear from Spicule all the time is the same information that's available to Amazon and the big online retailers is available to everybody. And it's not hard to take advantage of it. It's not hard to set up, is what I'm hearing, and it's also not very expensive, is it? That's the point really behind things like the Anssr Platform, which I think is a good time to come in and talk about why you came up with the Anssr Platform, what the Anssr Platform is, and I'm going to interject every so often when you go a little bit too technical. For me, I apologise, other people may understand it, but I won't, so I'm going to ask Tom at times certain things around what he's trying to say, but really listen hard about the Anssr Platform, because we're not just talking about retail, this is anything to do with data. So introduce it, tell us about it, what was the thought process, how it came around.
Yeah, so you go back to, just before we jump completely into that, you go back to the retail idea, and yeah, it's certainly the case that everybody has data. It's different volumes, obviously, compared to what you've got with Amazon, but you still have it. The problem that you often find with the smaller businesses is their initial question is, how much extra is it going to make me, or what difference is it going to have, direct impact is it going to have on my business? And that's quite a hard thing to be able to measure.
How do you prove it?
And so, what we've tried to do with the Anssr Platform, and certainly our consultancy as well, is make it affordable for small businesses, so that that outlay isn't hundreds of thousands of pounds. It's not massive license fees for the companies to get up and running and processing their data.
Yeah.
We want people to be able to process their data in an affordable manner. So the Anssr Platform itself, we've developed in conjunction with our partners, Canonical, who make the Ubuntu operating system. So they're a well-known IT services and software company. They're not well known for data solutions, but they've created an automation platform that allows us to be able to deploy scalable data processing solutions without...
No, that's a good time, because you use this word scalable a lot, and I get it now to a point, but for everybody else, what do you mean by scalable? How is that useful to the buyer?
Absolutely. As your data collection grows, as you get more data, the processing power required to actually be able to analyze that data grows. You need more storage, you need more hardware in terms of CPU, memory, that type of stuff to be able to crunch the data. So more traditionally, you would set up a server, you would deploy your software on it, and then when you reached capacity, you'd then get a bigger server and then copy everything across, migrate it, and scale that way. These days, a lot of software can deal with expansion by clustering, where you're running multiple instances of your piece of software and it distributes the load.
Okay.
And so Juju allows us to be able to leverage that, but it's often quite complex to set up. It's a tricky thing to do, especially understanding the networking and the way that the communications works in a secure manner. And so being able to scale that stuff without having to think about it too much is obviously something that's beneficial for businesses who want to be able to scale. So you can start small, you're happily crunching your data. Once you reach a certain limit, you can obviously add more servers to process more data.
Yeah, no, okay, that makes sense, thank you. So with Anssr, you already referred to Juju, which is a little bit of an early sneak peek of what's coming here, but so the actual purpose and the way that it's driven, where did that idea come from, and what past instances have you used similar technologies to sort of prove that this is market ready?
Yep. So my background prior to setting up Spicule was often in retail analytics. I founded a company called Meteorite BI. We provided a lot of analytics services to big retailers in London. From there, we also created the Seku analytics tool, which is an interactive sort of business user analytics engine. And Canonical rang me up one day and said, would you be interested in putting Seku onto the Juju platform? I didn't know what the Juju platform is, so I'll have to be honest with you. At that point, I pretty much hung up and ignored them. And then they rang me back like 12 months later and said, you haven't done it yet. Do you want to put Seku onto the Juju platform? Oh, and whilst you're there, do you want to come to our event in Ghent? We'll pay for your flights and hotel. And I quite like travelling, so free trip to Belgium. Why not? When I got there, the team were great. It was nice to be able to work with developers, and I got bought into the platform, what they envisaged in terms of making software easy to deploy. And they already had a whole bunch of different data processing tools on there, so I could see where they were trying to go. And so what we've done is then, taken their core elements and started to extend it with our own, and try and really focus on businesses and making the adoption of these, software packages and software models easy enough for. You still need technical knowledge. It's data and it's complex, but it certainly removes a degree of complexity in terms of getting that stuff up. Well,
it's important. Probably not everybody will have heard of Ubuntu. I hadn't beforehand, but it's important to talk about your direct relationship with Mark Shuttleworth and how Ubuntu and what that was all about in open source to just build up this accessibility element that we're talking about here. I mean, just talk everybody through a little bit about Ubuntu and open source and how this is freely available to people, really.
No, absolutely. So Canonical are well known for their Ubuntu operating system. Linux as an operating system, or the derivatives of Linux, with Red Hat and Debian being the main two distributions that have been available since the sort of dawn of time. Ubuntu was created by Mark Shuttleworth, who made his money selling SSL certificates a long time ago. Went into space, came back from space, and then decided that he was going to launch an easy-to-use Linux operating system. So Linux has been used inside data centers for a long, long time. Originally Unix, but then into Linux as well. And so Red Hat and now CentOS is one side of that, and then Debian and Ubuntu is like the other half of the mainstream operating systems used in data centers. But Ubuntu has seen a massive rise in use over the last few years, and is now widely used on all the cloud services, used in Internet of Things devices. I see a tweet that goes past quite regularly about the fact that a whole bunch of robots are based on the Ubuntu operating system and what have you. So their product is getting everywhere, and obviously being able to install software on top of a tried and tested operating system that has millions of users around the world is something that from our clients' perspective obviously offers a degree of it makes them feel happy and confident that the operating system is going to behave like they would expect.
Yeah, and that's a really important thing to stress, isn't it? That everything that you're talking about here is pretty well tried and tested. It's available to anybody in theory could work on this if you've got the technical expertise.
Yep.
What these guys do is provide that technical expertise. So again, going back to your small retailer, they've not got time to learn, and it could be very expensive to engage certain people to do it, whereas you've made it an affordable way to take advantage of this already available software and personalise it in effect.
Going back to the open source stuff specifically, open source technology and software especially has been around for a long time now, and what that means essentially is that people can take these software packages that are open source, they can install them without having paid any upfront license cost. It's not like installing Windows or Microsoft Office or something where you have to pay an upfront cost. You can use it, you can deploy it 1 million times throughout your business and you won't pay a penny for it. But that doesn't mean that they aren't complex to set up. And that's where obviously we come in and help our clients is in understanding how that software should be deployed and ensuring that when it is deployed, it's deployed in the most efficient manner possible. And what Anssr allows us to do is repeat that quickly and easily, for different customers. And if they want to do it themselves, they're more than welcome to do it themselves.
Yeah, so I was going to say that would be a really good time to talk about how people engage with Anssr. I mean, forget what my reference to retail earlier. Just think data. If you have information and you're unsure that you're making the most of it, or you're frustrated with your current supplier, or you don't even think you've done anything, what's the first step for somebody? How would they best engage with the Anssr platform and yourselves and Canonical and move that forward? What would your recommendation be?
One of the cool things about the Anssr platform is that it's free to get going. We don't charge anything up front. People can spin up servers. The only cost that they will incur is the cloud cost. So if you spin it up in Amazon AWS or on Google or in Microsoft Azure data centers, you will get charged for those servers that you start up. But there's no cost for the software. There's no cost for the deployment stuff that we've created. You're welcome to go and give it a try. And so the easiest way to get going is if you go to anssr.io, so that's ANSSR.io, and what we're trying to do there is create a big collection of getting started documents, easy to get going guides that allow people to spin up models which are effectively different applications tied together into these cloud-based services to get going, and so they can go and spin up an analytics platform, they can go and spin up something that will allow them to process large volumes of data, there's a whole bunch of different options, and they tie in with getting started guides that we've written and we're continuing to write to help people get on board it.
Yeah, then that's the really that's a really cool thing about it. I mean, I hear quite a few people make recommendations about give your stuff away. That people even say it to me in my coaching business. Just give more and more information out. Now, if you go and look at Anssr, you are going to get that information. You're going to be able to play with it, try it, have a look at case study information that's going to be building up there. It's going to continuously grow with information. At this point, you haven't had to pay a penny. If you then want to have a conversation with these guys, they're going to speak to you for free to talk about it and understand how it could work for your business. So this is what I'm saying. These are the sorts of messages that need to be out there because everybody should be at least looking at this. Everyone should be looking at it. It's free. Canonical behind it, and obviously the power of Mark Shuttleworth and open source is a massive advantage as well. This isn't just a small organisation. This is a big partnership in the making. So I really thought it was important to emphasise that. Now, once they've done that, they've come along, they've had a look, they've got to play for it, and either they think, well, blimey, I don't understand it, but I like the ideas that are in the case studies, or they have some interest but think, well, I haven't got the capacity to do it. What is the next stage? When does it start to cost? I mean, you're not going to do this at out the goodness of your heart forever. We're not a charity. So what at that point, when would they start engaging with you? What are the sort of costings they might be looking at? Is that an easy question to answer?
Yeah, there's normally two different ways that they can come about it. So depending on what experience you have internally will make a difference to what we can offer. So from a platform perspective, if you take the core software itself, one thing we do offer is service level agreements for all the models that we deploy. And so what you can do is, if you want to get software level support, which is operating system help, issues if there's upgrades to the software and they don't work as you would expect, or extensions, that type of stuff. The SLAs allow you to get quick and easy support for those services, and you can switch them on within the models. Depending on what you've spun up, they will cost a different amount, but there's no fixed term contract. You'll get billed for the first month up front, and then after that it's whatever you use. It's pay as you go model effectively. And as you scale, the price will increase because you've deployed more software, but it grows with your business.
It's relative, isn't it? Yeah.
And the choices of that are either basic operating system support. So if you feel that your software is mission critical, but you don't need support for the software, you just need operating system help. That's the first level. Then there's standard, which gives software support as well, and that's 9 till 5. And then there's the top tier support. And that's 24/7, 365 support for the platform itself.
Yeah.
Then when it comes to actually getting data into it, because that's often the other part of the problem is getting data into the platform. And so what we have here is a team of consultants who are happy to help. We're interested in different data projects and getting data into the platform, and taking whatever the source is, be it Excel spreadsheets, databases, or feeds from the internet, and transforming that into something that's going to work well from a reporting angle. Because that's the other thing as well, is quite often that we find businesses who take their raw data and then try and run analytics over the top of it, and it's not designed in the same way. And so they've got performance issues or data quality issues, and that's the type of thing from a consultancy side where Spicule can certainly help get businesses involved in analysing their data.
I think it's a big thing that's come up in recent conversations is about that initial work, how you start, so yes, if you've got existing data, of course, you want to try and migrate it over, but actually you won't just allow them to migrate it over. You would avoid that. You would actually talk to them about how you would do that, how you could actually cleanse what you've got already. And I heard some organisations, some big organisations like MapR, we were at a conference a few months ago, we're talking about the banking crisis and some cyber security issues that happened, and a genuine story that came out of that was fascinating. When Greece said it had no money, they were speaking to their banks, and the banks were saying, no, our systems aren't saying that you've got no money. 6 months later, it turned out Greece had no money, and 6 months later, their systems all talked and spoke and worked together to highlight, yeah, you've got no money, but 6 months had occurred. And it was because they were running about 50 different systems, I think they said, when me and Steve were down there, and it's just absolutely nuts. So again, by engaging these guys, what you're going to do is, if you've got existing data systems, they will talk you through it. And they're not going to expect anything for that at that point, because where Spicule's specialisms come in, and the partnership with Canonical is about delivery and moving forward. That's the really key element, and that's the thing. Also, this isn't just a product that is there now. I mean, what are the plans for the future moving forward? This is something that's going to be continually reviewed, continually changing. Have you got any sort of funky plans in the next few months related to it? I know there's some work going on behind the scenes at the moment. So
yeah, there's an awful lot of new stuff coming to the platform for streaming data analytics, really large scale data. If you've got a lot of data points or you want to do IoT stuff, we've got some bits and pieces coming at the back end of this year that will help alleviate that as well. I mean, certainly, customers are welcome to come and talk to us about their data issues. We're always happy to offer, some pretty sage advice just for having that conversation. I mean, the other thing as well is it strikes me these days is quite often, if you take your different software as a service platforms, these days, if you think about web traffic, you've got Google Analytics, you've got your own internal server logs, you've got metrics coming left, right, and center, then you've got social media analytics, And if you go to all the different platforms, they all have their own way of showing you your data. but it's only ever specific to that one platform. You know, if you go to ads, what is it, the Twitter stats page, you know, you can go there and you can have a look at that. You can go to your Google Analytics and it will show you your traffic to the website. It might tell you they've come from Twitter, but it's not necessarily much more enlightening than that. And they'll send you different demographics for your different people, but everyone also has their own opinion. You know, so it might be something like, okay, well, as a business, we've got our own reporting, but they're all in different places. And the Greece example for the banking is exactly that. And, you know, you've got all these reporting engines, but they don't tell you the bigger picture, which is quite often more telling than, you know, just looking at each individual piece. And so what we can do is, you know, take the data that's in these various silos, bring them into a central reporting engine, and then offer, you know, a more refined global picture that offers insight into your business as a whole and not just the individual elements that are
the things that Tom and Steve always talk about, and just sort of flippantly off the cuff say it's proactive rather than reactive. That's the big thing, but they dismiss it as just like a standard thing. But so many businesses that I have worked with directly or am aware of don't think like that. They react. And that prime example, I know it's an extreme one, but the money in Greece was a massive reactive issue. But what they will do by making sure that everything talks and all the data is looked at as a whole, you can suddenly become proactive. You know, you can actually plan ahead, you can see what's likely to come, you can build up baselines and then grow that information and use it more effectively. It's really cool stuff. I must admit, when I first engaged with them 6 months ago, I had no idea. They talked about retail analytics. I had a rough idea of what that was because of our family's background, but I realised even then we've not been doing that as well as we could have done. But then all the other things, I mean, you've worked with medical research companies and organisations that have massive issues with data in lots of different places. It's everywhere. The one problem with all this technology is there is so much data around, but it's actually very, very, I wouldn't say straightforward is fair. If you've got the technical skills, it's not that hard to bring it all together and make it valuable. So rather than just paying a huge amount to store data, you can actually make sure that you're using it effectively.
Yeah, storage is cheap, but storage isn't free. But businesses these days like the idea of just, you know, we'll store data because in 6 months, 12 months, we're going to find a way to use it, and then they don't. But that data storage obviously grows and costs the business money. But if you're not leveraging that data, then what's the point? Yeah,
absolutely. So I think for me, that really gives a really nice quick overview of what the Anssr Platform is around, what Spicule and the Canonical partnership is all about. Hopefully it's given a little bit more clarity about the benefits of data and using it properly, and also avoiding the cost. You know, this is actually going to generate money and efficiency and productivity for businesses, where at the moment people who aren't using it properly are missing a trick, and people who have it but aren't storing it effectively are obviously just spending money on stuff that they could be using more of. So if you've got any questions, there's so many different ways that you can get in touch with these guys on social media, on this video, on the website, through the contacts page and so forth. So is there anything else you want to leave with everybody before we finish the video, before we sign off, Tom?
I just think, you know, if people want to really get ahead in business these days, you know, not just on the high street, but across all industries, you know, making use of that data and that data that's available to you, and external data, you know, just think about what else you can augment that data feed with. You know, I think that's something that businesses need to think about and how to leverage properly. And if you don't, you know, if you don't know how to make best use of your data, come and talk to experts like us.
Yeah. Lovely. Okay, well, thanks, Tom. That's really good. That's exactly what I was looking for. Like I say, I hope it was interesting to everybody who's tuned in. And stay tuned, because there's going to be loads of more videos on social media, on the website, coming in the next few weeks and months. Thanks.